where we can come together to celebrate the arrival this month of the world's first international non-profit accounting standard. If you are a hashtag social media type person, we've got a hashtag which is INPAS Arrives 2025. Please do use that. My name is Samantha Musoke. I've been the IFR for MPO Project Director with Humentum since the project started in 2019. And I'm now the Director of INPAS Adoption. I'm dialing in from Uganda, where I live, and I'm delighted to be your host today. So I know many of you dialing in, joining us today will have been with us since the very beginning, maybe since 2019 or before. And it's a real delight to share this moment with you. And for some of you, perhaps this is your very first time engaging with us. You're all very, very welcome. Please do introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know which country you're in. And if you have a message for us that we can share on social media in the coming days, please do share that too. But please keep your microphones off if that's okay. Today, we want to spend some time to recognize and appreciate our global stakeholders, to reflect on our journey to this point, celebrate this month's announcements, and look forward to what's coming next. So if we could move to the next slide. In talking about accounting standards, I'm afraid it's a bit of an acronym soup. So there's a few acronyms I want to introduce so that you're not confused later. So the first is INPAS, which I mentioned already, the International Nonprofit Accounting Standard. The second is the IFR for MPO Project, which is International Financial Reporting for Non-Profit Organizations. And the third is CIPFA, one of the organizations involved in the IFR for MPO project. That's the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. The IASB might come up, the International Accounting Standards Board, the body that issues the IFRS, and especially the IFRS for SMEs, which is the International Financial Reporting Standard for Small and Medium Entities. A very crucial acronym is NPO, Non-Profit Organization. That is a even bigger group than NGOs. It includes charities, it includes NGOs, and it's even broader than that. But it's organizations that exist not to make a profit. They don't exist purely for the purposes of making a profit. IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, and IFAS, the International Forum of Accounting Standards Setters. There we go, acronyms over. Hopefully that just gives you enough to not feel lost if people do talk about those acronyms. So we're going to take a few moments today to reflect on the journey that's brought us to this point and meet some of the people behind the story. So I think I would like to bring in Tim Boyce-Watson, hopefully he's here, and think back to where some of this started. I think one of the earliest starting points was in 2011. Tim, you were the CEO of Mango at that time, and I think one of the first things that happened was you published a document, an article called Stand Up for Standards. Tell us what happened after that, up to the research that you can see on the screen here. Thanks, Tim.
Sam, and hi everybody. It's lovely to see so many names I recognize here on the call. Yeah, so back after I published the Stand Up for Standards in the CFG yearbook, then Karen Bradshaw, who was on the earlier call, turned out to be a real champion of this topic, and she organized a symposium which brought together the ISB and quite a few other, the International Accounting Standards Board, and a few other stakeholders to talk about, was this possible? And the outcome of that was this research, which was backed by all the major accounting institutions in the UK. So at this point, this was very UK centered initiative. But that research went very viral in some ways and global, and completely outstripped what the research team thought it was going to do. And 605 people from 179 countries responded. And it was an overwhelming, yes, we really need an international accounting standard. And I think we've actually got the author of that report on a short video. Is that right, Sam?
That's right. Jenna, do you want to go to the next slide, and we'll hear from Gareth. Morgan.
Back in 2013 and 14, I was Professor of Charity Studies at Sheffield Hallam University in the UK, and we were approached, amongst others, by the CCAB, the Consultative Committee of Accountancy Bodies in the UK, about the possibility of doing a major academic study to look at the case for international financial reporting standards for non-profit organisations. Those were the main parties involved in it, 4 universities in all. I co-led it with Louise Crawford from the University of Dundee. The survey took place in November-December 2013, and it was circulated to a really incredibly wide email list of all kinds of contacts, but we were delighted to receive 605 responses from people who had experience of not-for-profit financial accounting in 179 countries worldwide. And here's the responses by region. Although Europe was the largest group of respondents, you can see we had a very good 22% response from Africa. Overall, 72% of the respondents were in favour of international standards for financial reporting. But the narrative comments did show quite a different understanding of what was meant by accounting standards. There wasn't a uniform view on that. But what we did find was big differences across world regions. Respondents involved with European non-profit tended to be less supportive because there were existing standards, but certainly from African countries and also for the developing world more generally, the support was really quite strong. So we presented our report to the CCAB, and as you'll know, that's gone on and led to a massive project which has now led to the launch of INPAS. So we wish it every success, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. So Tim, what happened after that? Surely that was plain sailing from there, was it?
Well, you would think so, Sam, but it wasn't the case, right? Because as in many things, evidence doesn't mean that policy changes. So although this research was picked up by the International Accounting Standards Board, and they consulted globally about whether they should take on the remit of setting the standard in 2015, unfortunately, they decided no, and some quite powerful actors didn't recognize the demand, including the International Federation of Accountants at that time and the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. And so really the story that from here on is it's a triumph of local and minority voices over those powerful voices, because when they said no, what we did as a sector was realize that we had to do this ourselves. And Ian Carruthers, who I'd met back at that Charity Finance Group symposium, had just become the chair of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. And he was passionate about this issue too, and started organizing meetings of accounting standard setters. And at one particular influential meeting, a great colleague, Tamba Mamo, made quite an intervention.
Let's see if he's here. Tamba, are you with us? Are you able to join us? Tim, just before Tamba, come and join us. But Tim, you told me something somebody said about that we would never get standards for how many years?
Yes, right. Another thing that happened at meeting, somebody who used to work for the International Accounting Standards Board said to me, in one of those sort of coffee breaks, sidled over and gave me some wise advice, which is it'll take at least 40 years before there's an international non-profit accounting standard. Well, we've done it in 13, just 13 years. Yes, Tamba, we would never. It would be 40 years away, but for you.
So what happened next is that the INPAS, if we go to the next slide, Jenna, the International Forum of Accounting Standards Setters had a meeting, and they were discussing what a shame it was that nothing could be done. And Tamba, you were the Deputy Auditor General for Sierra Leone at that time. Tell us what happened in that meeting.
Thank you very much, Sam. Indeed, I was at the meeting in Toronto in Canada, and this matter has been discussed almost at every IFAS meeting I've been attending since 2013. But no one seemed to have, up to that point, nobody was really prepared to take it on as an exercise. We got word in Toronto that the IFRS Foundation, the board had made a decision that this is out of their mandate, and IPSAS-B also gave some reasons why they could not take on the project. So the room was quiet, everybody was just seated there. I thought, okay, I have to say something. I got up and asked the question that if the standard setting bodies that were present in that room, and all of the international standard setting bodies were there, if none were prepared to consider this issue, but yet we say there is need for an international standard for non-profits. I asked the question, who is going to then look into the matter? Because this is an accounting problem, and accounting standard setting bodies are seated, and they are all saying that they are not able to, for whatever reason, one reason or the other, they are not able to start it. So when the question was asked, Ian, who has been mentioned at the time, chair of the IPSAS-B, stood up and, in response to my question, volunteered to work with other volunteers who would be prepared to be meeting and to discuss whatever we can, whatever solutions we can come up with. So myself and some other esteemed colleagues in the room volunteered, and that's how we started meeting and discussing many meetings we had before eventually that group became known as the not-for-profit group, which then finally became the TAG, which is the Technical Advisory Group, as you know it. So thank you very much to all the colleagues that worked with us on this. It was an honor and privilege to serve on this committee. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Tamba. And thank you for challenging the room to actually take action. That was super.
Thank you.
So what happened after that? So the not-for-profit working group gathered, they shared some data, but they were also didn't really have anywhere to go. They got together and shared information, but what next? In 2017 Mango, which Tim was the CEO of, merged with two other organizations and became Humentum. I'd been a Mango trainer and I was brought in to work for Humentum. And Tim introduced me to Ian, together with the Jeff Mechanic from the Financial Accounting Standards Bureau in the US and ACCA Global. And we spent 9 months preparing a session for the Humentum conference with the title, Is the Time Now Right for Nonprofit Accounting Standards? And that got a fantastic response. So we put our thoughts together in some proposals. We pitched to the Ford Foundation and the Open Society Foundations, and they gave us seed funding. And I really want to call them out for their vision and boldness in backing something quite as wild and off the mainstream as an accounting standard, and the questions that they asked and the way they pushed us to really think was incredibly valuable. So later that year, in October 2019, the IFR for NPO project was born. And I think there's a nice picture of us there. There's Tim and me. In the front next to me is Ian, who we'll hear from later, Jeff from FASB in the back, and John Bernstein from the Ford Foundation behind Ian. So that was a really momentous occasion. That was also the beginning of the partnership between CIPFA and Humentum, which really started as Ian and Tim, but has become much even broader and a much more organizational level partnership as well, with CIPFA bringing that accounting prowess and reputation, and Humentum bringing that knowledge and reputation with the sector. And it's these two that came together, which was super. So what happened next? In 2020 was a year of bringing together all our advisory groups and volunteers and country champions. And without these groups of volunteers and people, the project would be nothing. We were a tiny team, and it's this diversity and wisdom from around the world that really enabled us to achieve anything at all. We had the technical advisory group, which Tamba mentioned, was really that not-for-profit working group from INPAS. They were standard setters from around the world, became the TAG. We also had a practitioner advisory group of auditors and NPOs and academics. We had a donor reference group, donor advisory group with multilaterals, governments, foundations, and a governance group that really oversaw the project and the standard setting process as a whole, if you like. So I'd like at this point to bring in Pablo San Martin, Luke Aside Rizarro, and Caroline Kariuki. Hope you're all here. So Pablo, welcome. Let's start with you. You're the president of SMS Latin America, a network of audit firms working across the continent. and you were nominated by the Forum of Firms. That's a grouping of influential leading audit firms. You were nominated by them to join the PAG. I understand that your clients include small and medium-sized nonprofits in Latin America. So my question to you, Pablo, is do you feel that those needs of and the perspectives of your clients were reflected in the discussions and the debates that you heard at the PAG?
Thank you, Sam. Well, first, I'd like to share how happy I feel with the launch of INPAS after so much hard work. Going to your point, there was a strong interest and active participation throughout the process. All the clients' perspectives were clearly reflected in the discussions, and having a global standard strengthens transparency and enables audit efficiency. We are auditors. Allowing all the teams across Latin America to be trained consistently, reducing duplication, getting it's a big achievement for the profession. I am confident that INPAS will improve the access to financing to many non-profit organizations, and it provides stakeholders and especially donors with clear and understandable information. I would like to remark also the minority voices were present throughout the process. The diversity was outstanding. 85, I think that Tim mentioned before, 82% of responses came from emerging economies. We are now focusing on adoption. We have begun conversation with regulators and professional accounting organizations. And personally, again, it was an honor to be part of this project. We have supported and will continue supporting with full commitment. Thank you, all of you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Pablo, and thank you again for your support as a firm. That's been really appreciated. Wonderful. I'm now going to come to Luke. Luke, you're the Grant-Making Effectiveness Officer at the Ford Foundation. And as Ford, you've not only provided funding, but you've also been such a mighty advocate in this space. Now, Ford Foundation's mission is very rooted in social justice issues. So why on earth did you find yourself backing an international accounting standard?
Thank you, Sam. And it's really great to see everyone. So, I mean, I'll say primarily, we really believe that our grantee partners are, the people that are changing the world and that are furthering our mission. And we're really, really invested in their long-term vision, their long-term institutional health. And so we really see these accounting standards as supporting nonprofit financial resiliency, right? So it provides a framework for organizations to work with that is global. It helps us as a funder have a much better understanding of their financial picture across all the different countries that we fund in and all the different fields, helps us identify patterns and really understand what are those areas where we can also provide additional support to our grantees so that they can be more financially resilient. And then I will say, as a grant-making effectiveness person at Ford, I'm also particularly excited about the possibility of having harmonized grant reporting, right, and kind of a shared understanding across funders of what we are asking for in financial reports so that we can lower burdens for grantees so that people don't have to write 30 different reports for 30 different funders in 30 different categories, right, and levels of detail. And so that was also another piece that made us very, very excited and very proud to support this work.
Thank you so much, Luke. And you've also, of course, been a member of the Donor Advisory Group. And so thank you also for your support there. And finally, last but not least, I'd love to come to Caroline. Caroline, you were one of our very first country champions in Kenya. And at that time, you were the Director of Finance and Administration at the Open Society Foundations of East Africa. Can you give us a taste of some of the fruits of your efforts as a champion to engage stakeholders in Kenya over the last 6 years?
Thank you, Sam, and everybody else. I'm excited. This is a very, very proud moment to be here, and especially considering the long journey that have come since we started, and to the point that now we are saying, indeed, we have the document. Now, what we did in Kenya, the first thing we did was actually to work with with the local accounting body, because there is nothing you can do if you do not collaborate with the local accounting body. And one of the things they have been doing over time is to ensure every time they have a convening for the accountants or even for their CEO, it's they invite us so that we can also talk about the project, and therefore there was an easy buy-in from the accountants because we kept on talking about it. The other thing that we are also able to do is to connect with the other regulatory bodies in the country, and especially the NGO regulatory body, the NGO board. And one of the things we learned from the NGO board is that they had in the work plan, they wanted to come up with a standard or something that can be used by the NGOs, so that when they are reporting, they have a harmonized template. So what we agreed with them is like, let us carry out with these INPAS, so that at the end of the day, they don't have to have so many templates. We can only have one harmonized template so that they can be able to report to them. One of the things I also learned is to reach out to the CFOs, because at the end of the day, it is the CFOs who have the budget. It's the CFOs who know whether they are going to move into INPAS or they still continue staying with the IFRs or IFR for SMOs. So what I've done continuously is really to reach out to my FSOs and finance directors, so that by the time we start the implementation, I already have a few organizations that want to start on to jump into the INPAS. So for us, and again also having a community of very enthusiastic accountants who are also willing to reach out to the other accountants, so that at the end of the day, they are also able to bring the gospel to the others. At most of the times we find, by the time we get the newsletter, it's already circulated to so many people by the same people. The other thing we also did was to have the national working group. And over time, we were able to pick the people who are going to see the implementation, because for us, we looked at the end product. We want to implement INPAS, and therefore, every person in the national working group have a role. We have donors, we have auditors, we have CFOs, we have the regulatory bodies, we have people from ISPAC, that is the accountant body, so that by the time we are saying we want now to go to the next stage of implementation, it is going to be very easy for us. And by the way, we already have a few organizations who are willing to be the early adopters. So for us, I think we almost we know once we say we have a few organizations who are willing to be the early adopters of the standard. Thank you.
Wonderful, Caroline. Asante sana, let me say that. And I think Kenya has been a fantastic example of pioneering country, and we're really excited to work with you. So thank you, the three of you. You have been representatives of all the different group members, and maybe there's people in the audience. Maybe you can give us a wave if you yourself have been a member of one of these groups. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's now bring in Tam Gelsenhuis. Not quite sure how to pronounce that, Tam, I'm sorry to say. But 2021 to 2024 was a period of intense public consultation. We issued a consultation paper, we decided on the name for the guidance, the standard, and we issued an exposure draft, which is like an early version for public comment. We issued it in 3 parts, together with explanatory videos. We held webinars and regional events, and we received hundreds of comments and responses, as you can see here. Now, Tam, you're the founder of the I-61 Foundation in Mauritius, and you shared your views as part of this consultation process. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Now, I'm interested to know if you'd ever responded to anything like this before, and how did you find the experience of inputting to an international accounting standard?
Thanks so much, Sam. And as everyone else said, huge congratulations for getting to this point, and what an amazing example of international collaboration to see a job well done. So congratulations to everybody involved. And thank you for the opportunity for sharing a few words. This was indeed my first time responding to an accounting standard consultation. And I did it because it was relevant to what I do, and really what INPAS is all about has really resonated loudly with me. I have a limited financial background, and I've found a very small nonprofit in a small island country. So I did initially feel a little intimidated by the enormity of the project, and really if my voice was necessary to contribute to what was already a vast network of experience that was being tapped into. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong. From the outset, the conversations and the discussions were pertinent, and my input was welcomed. I think, as somebody has already said, just really encouraging those of us from smaller nations to contribute, and to be asked to contribute was really something. So thank you for that. The documents were pretty dense, but the video resources and the webinar events were helpful to understand the practical implications of the proposals. And I learned so much actually myself from the process, and it was great to feel that the voice that I did have could shape a little of what was required. The foundation I work for is all about supporting and educating nonprofits in meeting regulatory standards, and instrumental in driving their funding. So sharing the INPAS financial standards with our partners will enhance their compliance even further, which I'm really excited about. And I'm really grateful to have been a tiny part of this trailblazing initiative, and excited to see INPAS being rolled out. With nonprofits empowered through transparent funding allocation and standardized reporting, communities will definitely be strengthened through increased donor confidence and repeated funding initiatives. So really excited about that, and thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Tam. And you've literally ruined my mascara. You brought a tear to my eyes from that. I'm so happy to hear you say that.
It was an extraordinary experience, and really look forward to continuing to collaborate with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me extend my thank you to everyone here who also contributed and took the effort to respond. It wasn't that easy. It was, we tried to make it as easy as possible, but they are dense documents. So everybody who took the time to contribute and respond, a real thank you. So next up, I'd like to bring in Siham Bortkosh, sorry. Now, back in that 2014 survey that we heard from Gareth Morgan, he mentioned that not everybody had the same understanding of the word accounting standards. And some of the respondents were actually talking about donor and grant reporting rather than whole of entity reporting. Now, that was always important to our funders as well, and we knew it was essential to really meet the needs. So all of our efforts up to 2023 had been primarily focused on the whole of entity accounting. But then in 2023, we decided to explore the possibility of producing guidance to harmonize grant reporting. Now, Siham, you've been involved in previous donor reporting harmonization initiatives like Money Where It Counts, as well as Humentum's work on the administrative costs research project. So you were the obvious choice to be the technical lead for the working group that developed the content that later became INPAS Guide 1, Harmonized Grant Reporting. So Siham, tell us a bit about your experience. I'm guessing you could probably write a book about it, but what actually just stands out for you?
Thanks so much, Sam. I can write a book, but I will keep it brief. It was such a privilege to work with the Supplementary Statement Working Group to develop what's become INPAS Practice Guide 1. Quite early on, we realised that the supplementary statement had to have some fixed points to make it consistent with INPAS. But at the same time, we also knew it had to offer flexibility to accommodate donor and NPO needs. So we came up with the idea of a basic format that aligns with INPAS and is reconcilable to the INPAS financial statements, but with optional additional columns and notes that can be tailored to provide information that donors need and want. Thinking back, I remember I was so conscious of what a unique opportunity we had to address this really long-standing challenge for NPOs around donor reporting. We all know that NPOs are often faced with many, many different grant reporting requirements, which are often conflicting, and it's a huge time and resource requirement. So I knew we had an opportunity to address it. And to be frank, throughout the process, there were times when I just didn't think we would get there. So, for example, when the technical advisory group quite understandably felt that the supplementary statement we were designing was outside the scope of the general purpose financial reporting requirement, we thought maybe we wouldn't be able to go ahead. But your optimism and tenacity really helped a lot at those times, Sam. You sort of kept us going. And now here we are. And as more and more donors adopt or agree to use INPAS Guide 1, the positive impact on NPOs will be felt all around the world. I guess it just remains to say I'm so proud of the work that we did on the practice guide to get to today. And I would really like to personally thank all the members of the working group who contributed so much, and also you, Sam, and Karen, and the other CIPFA representatives who between you all made it happen.
Thank you, Siham. Thank you so much for your work on this. And obviously everybody asks us, what about donors? Are they involved in this? And so on the next slide, you'll see we have a donor statement of support. This is still sitting on the IFR for NPO website. And it's signed by a number of big name donors saying that they agree that the quality of reporting needs to be improved, and reducing the burden to reporting organizations. So please do take a look at that statement. And it's been so essential to have that support. So thank you so much for that work. And we're going to hear a bit more about that from Karen later. So the final thing on this journey is that we finally announced the name of the standard as INPAS. I think that was a couple of 3 or 4 months ago. And that completes the journey. We can look back and see the mountain that we have climbed together. And I'd again like to thank every one of you that's been involved. So we're now going to play our launch video.
Non-profit organisations, or NPOs, play a vital role worldwide, delivering impact and improving lives. Their success depends on trust from the communities they serve, their funders, and regulators. Transparency lays the foundation for trust. NPOs demonstrate accountability by sharing clear information about their funding and how resources are used to deliver their missions. Until 2025, there was no international accounting standard for NPOs. This has created inefficiencies, a lack of comparability, and a heavy reporting burden due to multiple formats. That's changing with the International Non-Profit Accounting Standard, or INPAS. INPAS sets the standard for NPO financial reporting globally, helping organizations prepare annual accounts that meet the needs of diverse stakeholders. Countries are already starting to adopt it for use by their NPOs. Accompanying the standard, INPAS Practice Guide 1 introduces a harmonized format for grant reports or supplementary statements. It explains how grant reports should link to the whole of entity accounts, making it easier to audit. Funders played a key role in its development, and it can be used for grantee reporting, streamlining efforts and saving time. This work started in 2019 with the IFR for NPO project, which was led by CIPFA and Humentum in response to global demand. Today, INPAS is an inclusive standard, shaped with input from national standard setters across 15 countries from all continents. Following due process for international standards, it was validated and improved through consultations with stakeholders in 86 countries. Built on existing accounting standards, INPAS is adapted to meet the unique needs of NPOs, bringing a standalone solution. And it's governed by a newly established public interest entity, the International Non-Profit Reporting Foundation. INPAS is more than just an accounting or compliance exercise. It's a bold step towards transforming financial accountability. It also contributes to solving sector-wide challenges, such as direct funding to local organisations, flexible funding, and fair coverage of support costs. Surprisingly, it does two things at once. It improves quality and reduces the burden of grant reporting. That's a win for everyone. donors, regulators, auditors, and above all, the organisations doing social good. Now's the time to take INPAS off the page and into practice.
Super. And you can see that video from the inprf.org website. So I'd love to bring in now Humentum and CIPFA, Anna Blackman, who's the CFO of CIPFA, and Jocelyn Boughton, the co-CEO of Humentum. Anna, let me hand over to you for some words from CIPFA first.
Thank you very much, Sam, and huge congratulations to you and the team for climbing this particular mountain or eating this particular elephant, which I know has been in the works for a really long time. So huge congratulations to get to this point. So having worked on for sort of 6 years on the development of INPAS, CIPFA and I guess in Humentum didn't want the end of the IFRS for NPO project to be the end. Actually, you know, getting the standard is the beginning of the journey. Notwithstanding you've climbed one mountain, actually what we want to do is get people adopting it to make sure the benefits get realised. And when we looked at it, you know, there are only 2 accounting standard setters in the world since the 1990s. One meets the needs of capital markets and for-profits, and the other for governments. And neither's a really great home for INPAS, given what it's trying to do. So you may well have seen that on the 1st of October, we announced that we're continuing our collaboration with Humentum, and we've created a new entity, the International Not-for-Profit Reporting Foundation. What this does is put INPAS in a long-term home for the future, and we can then be really confident that the project you've all been working on is going to have a lasting legacy through that foundation. And having led that development with Humentum and alongside all of you, you know, colleagues at CIPFA and I feel a huge pride in being able to establish the INPRF with Humentum as an independent body that will become the body that takes this work forward and really drives adoption across the globe. So the foundation represents a vital step in giving the not-for-profit sector the same professional consistency and credibility in financial reporting standards that the private and the public sectors have. So we're hugely proud of what you and the team have achieved. We're also super excited about what comes next. And I'm going to hand over to Jocelyn to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Anna. And we, along with CIPFA, are also very proud of the work that's been done by the team here and all the various reporting groups. The launch of INPAS this month marks a real turning point for non-profit reporting, equipping organisations with a global accounting standard that streamlines requirements and fosters financial sustainability. As I said, we're proud to help to establish the foundation, being one of its founder members along with CIPFA, and we look forward to how they will take forward the critical work that builds the resilience and will shift power to local actors, giving them greater autonomy and influence. If we look how this has been involved and how the work has happened over the IFNR for NPO project, you'll see here we've got more than 15,000 stakeholders in nearly 170 countries, many of whom you've seen by the people that have spoken today and from where they come from, how that is just representative. So we're really, again, proud to be part of that and with this global movement, and we're confident that INPAS has been developed by the sector and for the sector by this engagement and involvement. Then how will INPAS transform the sector? I mean, there are so many ways that it will do this, making things fairer, more efficient for NPOs and funders. You can see some of the benefits here. First, for the funders, the benefits of stronger audit assurance, easier due diligence, improved transparency, and more consistency. As for the NPOs, the benefits include reducing the burden of multiple formats, and as a CFO, and a finance manager, I can totally 100% think about the good that this will bring and how it will make everyone's life easier. But this reduced burden, be able to demonstrate your financial capacity, better information for your board members and managers, and more relevant and products and services to meet sector needs. At this point, I will now hand back to Sam.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you very much. And it's just great to see those benefits. Now I'm going to bring in Karen Sanderson. I'm really honoured to introduce you to Karen. She's the colleague I've worked with most closely over the last 6 years. Karen is the INPAS Technical Director and has been the primary pen holder. I think you probably know, Karen, the thought process behind every single sentence and paragraph in INPAS. I know you've got to go quite soon, so as far as you can, would you please just walk us through some of the primary features of INPAS? Thanks, Karen.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sam. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and being involved in this. I'm not going to get into any technical details though. People can always pick my brains, but now's not the time to do it. I think we're in celebratory mode, so we want to keep this kind of big picture and keep the party going. So I think, because it's already been said, and just to clarify, you know, INPAS is about general purpose. I think one that hasn't been brought out in the conversation so far is that this is a principles-based document. So it's not a set of rules, it's a set of principles. And so I think one of the challenges that people are going to have going forward is working out how those principles apply to their situation. Rules are sometimes much easier to follow. I know sometimes much harder, but principles require judgment, and that's something that we will be working with people going forward to help go through that. So it covers the recognition, measurement of transactions, so income and expenses and assets and liabilities, but also how they're presented and disclosed. And importantly, it covers narrative reporting. And that is a really important feature of INPAS that isn't baked in the same way to other international financial reporting standards. As with any other international financial reporting standard, it will be up to each jurisdiction to decide whether they adopt it, and that's whether it requires an NPO to use it or it permits an NPO to use it. But of course, if it's allowable in a jurisdiction, an NPO can voluntarily adopt it, and we would certainly encourage that. Now go to the next slide, please. I probably won't talk very much about this because CIHAM's done a fabulous job already around talking about it. So this practice guide is more rules-based, it's much less principles-based, and obviously from the way CIHAM described it, you know, provides a fantastic opportunity to harmonize, you know, reporting of grant expenditures, and the standardization of the format in here really helps that. As it's slightly different to INPAS in that it's voluntary in terms of how it is used, and you could be in a situation where you use INPAS and don't use the practice guide, or you use the practice guide and don't use INPAS. So they can work independently of each other. But as we go into the next slide, we really have designed them to work together. So, you know, INPAS is a big document. It's approximately 300 pages. And really, as I said, at the whole of entity level, 300 pages might sound a lot, but it's a lot less than full financial reporting standards, which go into the thousands. So it's much more compact than that. But even more compact is the practice guide, which is a really relatively short document that does that grant reporting that we talked about. But importantly, and I think CIHAM touched on this as well, is that they're designed to work together so that there are anchor points between them that provides greater assurance that the grant numbers haven't been sort of plucked out of thin air, so to speak, that they actually come from the same financial information that's been audited as part of the annual financial statements. So that anchor point is really, really important. So I'm not going to talk about INPAS and the practice guide. We've touched on that, but just to talk about the two documents in the middle, we've also written implementation guidance that contains illustrative examples to help apply the concepts that are in INPAS. And that implementation guidance also includes illustrative financial statements. They won't cover every transaction that you ever have, but they are intended to cover common ones that NPOs experience rather than any entity experiences. And they work with the illustrative examples that are in the implementation guidance. Not on this slide, but we're also producing a suite of at-a-glance documents that summarizes what is in each section so that you can look at it and see what the overall requirements looks like and whether that's relevant for you. The other document is called the Basis for Conclusions, and that document is the one that explains how we got to where we got to for some of the key areas. Sam said there's a lot of stuff in my head. The rationale for where we got to is certainly in my head, but we've also written it down so that people can see what we intended to do as part of the process. And then moving on to the next slide, this is really my opportunity to say thank you to the IFRS Foundation and to IFAC. They have enabled us to produce INPAS as quickly as we have. 6 years might sound a long time, but much better than the 40 years that was quoted to Tim earlier. And it's through them allowing us to use their intellectual property, their standards that we have got there in the time that we have. So thank you very much to them for sharing that. So I'm going to stop at that point. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Karen. And now I'm going to bring in the mighty Ian Carruthers, who's been mentioned by very many people. And Ian's going to tell us a little bit about the new foundation. Ian, you are in the last few weeks, I think, of being the chair of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and you're going to be the CEO of the new foundation. So please tell us a bit about it.
So thank you very much, Sam, and I'm delighted to be here. It's been wonderful being reminded of the journey that we've all been on, and so many fantastic people that have input, and just again huge thanks to everybody that's actually done that. And really what I want to do is pick up on, well, what next? And I think this picks up on the comments that both Anna and Jocelyn were making about how do we move forward, how do we really make this live? And I think that's where the International Non-Profit Reporting Foundation, or INPRF to its friends, comes in. And we've been thinking about, well, okay, what is the vision for the future? And I think if I just pick out a few words from that vision statement: confidence, best use of resources, and above all, social good. I think that's what's, that's what really drives us, is wanting to maximize that social good. So that's the broad vision that we want to contribute to, and we want to help you deliver. In terms of our mission, obviously, promotion, support for the development, for you implementing the standard, and us continuing to make it relevant, responding to your needs. So in terms of perhaps a little more granular, in terms of our objectives then as an organization, if we can move on to the next slide, we've got a few high-level objectives. Promotion very much front and center. So we're pulling back on development of new standards or anything like that. It's now about actually getting the word out there. And today's part of that. We want to help you to build capacities. So developing materials to help you adopt and implement the standard, whether you're an NPO, whether you're a regulator, and so on. And I think sharing practice as you go through that is going to be tremendously important. So a facilitation role in terms of building and sustaining communities of practice. And of course, we've got to make the organization sustainable. We want to carry on. We want to make this live and continue into the future. So there's work there. So what about the organization? How is that going to work? First and foremost, this is a member body. It's about you as a community, and we want you to join us as members in that organisation. NPOs and those promoting the work of NPOs, working with them, can be part of this. We already have 2 members, as has been mentioned already. So we're delighted that CIPFA and Humentum have remained with us as the founder members of INPRF, but we really do want more members. So please get in touch with us about that. We have a board of trustees. Currently, we have 2 trustees. Joyce Tamale from the Humentum board has joined us as the interim chair trustee, and Chris Austin, who I know is on the event today. Chris has joined us as CIPFA's nominated trustee, but we need more trustees. So please do watch out for the call for nominations that we will make later in the month, because we're looking for 6 more trustees and also a permanent chair trustee. In terms of the team that will actually be responsible to the trustees, Sam's mentioned my appointment as CFO, but both Sam and Karen will continue into that new organisation. But we want you to continue to remain involved. So are those advisory groups that we've talked about and our country champions, now is the time that we need you, our country champions, even more than ever before. You know, you really, what you and the advisory groups do is to bring the diversity and to be able to get the reach and to share perspectives backwards and forwards. That's going to be hugely important as we create INPRF and we make that an organisation that will reflect your needs and your diversity. So really excited to be able to do this, and Sam, really great to be working together as we make this happen. And back to you at that stage.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. So yeah, it's really exciting. As IFR for NPO sunsets at the end of this month, it's great to know that there's a future ahead. So what's next for you? Where can you go? Where will you be able to find INPAS? We know it's coming this month, but how will you get it? So there's a new website for the foundation. It's inprf.org. And from that website, you can see the video that we just watched, and you can see there's a button saying download the standards coming soon. So also along the top there, you can see there's some headers about the foundation, about INPAS and the practice guide, resources for adoption. I can see some of the questions. Are there going to be trainings? Are there going to be materials? Absolutely, that is in our remit. We can't promise everything within a month. It does take some time, but absolutely, that's exactly what we want to support you to do. News and events, the information about how INPAS was developed, the due process, the consultation that gives INPAS its validity. There's lots of information about that. And then ways that you can get involved, how to sign up to a community of practice, or to show your support on the website, or to contact your country champion. So if you click the button, the download the standards, you get to a form where you can fill in your information, and you'll be sent a PDF. Or you'll get access to a PDF to download. It also comes with some terms of use. So I do want to mention that very briefly. And on the adoption section in the website, there's a page called licensing and translation. Now, because this is based on IFRS for SMEs, there is some intellectual property that it belongs to the foundation. So if you are a standard setter or a regulator and you're looking to adopt INPAS in your country, please just have a read of that page. Licenses are free, but it is important to understand what you can and can't do there. Next off, we've got some resources for adoption. On the supporting adoption page, there's resources for different types of organizations. There's some FAQs, some videos, some the at-a-glance documents that Karen mentioned earlier. So please do have a look there. And as I said, there will be more coming. So this is that we've got a sort of nascent set of resources now, but we'll be adding to that more and more. One thing I do want to say is that the adoption of international accounting standards is a considered process. It does take time. Many countries might even go through their own national consultation process to think about relevance to their own stakeholders, maybe thinking about which NPOs, maybe thinking about the time scale, and maybe thinking about support that can come with any adoption mandate. So it will take time, but the time to start is now. So if you have a role in starting those conversations, in developing the maybe the auditors or the accounting softwares, whatever that want to be able to support this transition, now's the time to start. Super. I think with that, I would like to play a brief video from Bee Leng in Malaysia.
Good day, everyone. I am Bee Leng from Malaysia. It is with a sense of shared purpose that I join you today for the launch of the International Non-Profit Accounting Standard, INPAS. As a member of the Technical Advisory Group, I have had the opportunity to contribute to the technical development of this initiative, which marks a notable moment for the third sector. INPAS introduces a principle-based framework that reflects sector diversity and operational realities, promoting greater consistency and enhancing the quality of financial communication. This is more than a technical milestone. It represents a collective effort to improve clarity, coherence, and relevance in non-profit financial reporting. Drawing on sector insight and shaped through rigorous consultation, this framework is expected to enhance transparency and stakeholder confidence. INPAS marks a meaningful progress in the evolving non-profit landscape. Congratulations to all who have contributed to this landmark achievement. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to join this historic launch for the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Bee Leng, who's been a stalwart member of the Technical Advisory Group since the earliest days. So it just remains for me in the last few minutes. I know there have been loads of questions and comments in the chat. We won't have time to cover them, but we are certainly going to read them all, I promise, and we will either respond to you individually, we'll update our FAQs, it will help us know what is not clear, what can we make clearer on the website, etc. So thank you so much for all those comments and questions. I'd like to do a final thank you, obviously, to all the advisory group members who said it. I won't say it anymore. I will say it. I'll say it again and again, and the country champions. I also want to do a shout out to all the other staff in Humentum and CIPFA who might have not been part of the IFR for MPO team directly, but also played a huge role. I think of also the comms challenge of trying to make accounting standards exciting. They did a fantastic job there. We do ongoing want to remain to hear your comments, your questions, and your feedback. Once you've downloaded INPAS later this month, we still have an open door. This is our very first publication. It will not be the same in 20 years because you will keep giving feedback and it will keep improving. So please, our door is open. We do have FAQs on the website, but hopefully some of the questions you've got will be answered there. But with that, it remains for me to say a massive thank you. We've finished even ahead of time. I've given you 2 minutes back to your Thursday morning or evening. And thank you very, very much, everybody. All the best. Bye-bye.